At 61, I had settled into the rhythm of invisibility. My days moved with the precision of a well-wound clockwork. Home. Solitude. After Richard's death 6 years ago, I'd wrapped myself in routine like a comfortable shawl, believing that part of my story had ended. The chapters of being desired, being truly seen, felt like something from another woman's life. I am Margaret Torres, and I've spent decades perfecting the art of quiet competence. At Hartwell & Associates, where I've worked for nearly 2 decades, I'm the steady presence who keeps chaos at bay. My colleagues respect me. My boss Daniel Hartwell relies on me. But somewhere along the way, I became wallpaper functional, unnoticed, expected. That October evening when the sky opened with one of those soft, persistent rains that makes the world feel muffled and contemplative, I lingered at my desk longer than usual. Daniel had rushed off to a client dinner, but not before, mentioning that his son would swing by to give me a lift home. "You don't need to trouble yourself," I'd protested. But Daniel was already gathering his coat. "Nonsense, Margaret," Alex offered, "and with this weather... I barely knew Alex Hartwell. 26, recently returned from graduate school. He'd appeared at a handful of office gatherings, tall, quietly confident, with his father's sharp eyes but a gentler demeanor. To me, he was simply Daniel's son, polite but distant, existing in that separate world of youth and possibility. When I finally emerged from the building, wrestling with my umbrella against the wind, I spotted a silver sedan idling at the curb. Alex stepped out, jogging toward me with easy athleticism, his jacket already darkened with rain. "Mrs. Torres?" His smile was warm, genuine. "Ready to escape this weather? I've got the heat running." "Please, call me Margaret," I said, accepting his offered arm. "And thank you, this is very thoughtful." The car's interior felt like sanctuary warm leather, the faint scent of coffee and something clean, maybe cedar. He adjusted his mirrors with practiced ease and pulled into traffic with smooth confidence. "I hope this isn't an inconvenience," I murmured, folding my hands carefully in my lap. Alex glanced at me, something unreadable crossing his features. "Actually, I was grateful for the excuse to drive. Helps me think." We traveled through the city in companionable quiet, windshield wipers marking time against the glass. The streetlights blurred into watercolor streaks on the wet pavement, and I found myself stealing glances at his profile. The concentrated set of his jaw, the way his fingers drummed absently against the steering wheel. "You've been with Dad's company forever," he said suddenly, breaking the silence. 18 years this December." He nodded thoughtfully. "He mentions you constantly. Says you're the backbone of the place." I laughed softly. "Someone has to mind the details." But instead of responding with pleasantries, Alex grew quiet again, that earlier tension returning to his shoulders. When he suddenly signaled and pulled into a small lot beside a neighborhood park, my pulse quickened with unexpected alarm. The rain had gentled to a whisper. Dashboard light cast blue shadows across his face as he turned toward me. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I know this seems strange, stopping like this, but I've been carrying something for months, and I don't think I can drive you home pretending everything's normal." My breath caught. I braced myself for some family drama. Perhaps troubles with Daniel, maybe career struggles or relationship turmoil. But what came next shattered every assumption I'd made. "I've been thinking about you," he said, his voice steady but vulnerable. "I know how that sounds. You work with my father, I understand all the reasons it's complicated. But at those office events, watching you move through conversations with such grace, such quiet strength, Margaret, you have this presence that draws people in, whether you realize it or not." The silence stretched between us, filled only by the gentle hum of the heater and the thundering of my own heartbeat. I don't expect anything, he continued, his gaze never wavering. I just needed to tell you because you deserve to know that someone sees you. Really sees you. I felt something crack open inside my chest, not breaking, but blooming. An ache I'd forgotten existed, the longing to be noticed not as a competent colleague or reliable friend, but as a woman worthy of desire, of genuine attention. Finally, I found my voice. Alex ... You don't need to say anything. I just wanted you to know. When he drove me home after that, the silence felt different, charged with possibility and fragile with newness. After he walked me to my door, I stood in my foyer for a long time, still wearing my coat, staring at the space where he'd stood. That night, sleep eluded me completely. The next few days passed in a strange haze. I moved through familymoment's morning coffee, feeding Whiskers my ancient tabby, tending to reports and meetings, but everything felt heightened, as if I'd been sleepwalking for years and suddenly snapped awake. When Alex texted midweeker, simple message apologizing if he'd overstepped, I stared at my phone for 10 full minutes before replying. You didn't overstep. Thank you for your honesty. I'm still processing everything. His response came quickly. Take all the time you need. Just wanted you to know I meant every word. That evening, wrapped in a fur on my back porch, I contemplated love, how I'd once understood it, and how the years had convinced me it belonged to other people, younger people, people whose stories weren't already half-written. When you reach your 60s, society stops seeing you as someone capable of romance. You become a fixture, reliable but unremarkable. Yet, Alex hadn't looked at me like I was fading into the background. A few days later, when Daniel's usual assistant fell ill, and I volunteered for an off-site client meeting, I discovered Alex waiting by his car when I stepped outside the building. Dad, thought you might need transportation, he said, that careful smile playing at his lips. This time, our conversation flowed more easily. He asked about my garden, my thoughts on a book he'd noticed on my desk. When we reached the client's office, I hesitated before getting out. What you said the other night, did you mean it? His eyes met mine without flinching. Every single word. That's overwhelming for someone like me. You're so young, and I'm Margaret. His interruption was gentle but firm. Don't reduce yourself to just a number. You're intelligent, warm, and when you laugh, it transforms your entire face. That's what I see. I felt those careful walls I'd built over decades beginning to crumble. When I handed him the folder for delivery, our fingers brushed such a small contact, but it sent warmth spiraling through me. I'll wait here, he said. Simply. On the drive back, he pulled up in front of the office but didn't immediately get out. I don't want to pressure you or make this awkward, he said carefully. But I meant what I said. And if all I ever am is someone who reminded you of your own worth, that's enough. I reached for the door handle but paused, turning back to him. You did remind me, I said softly. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear it. Something shifted in his expression, hope, maybe, or quiet joy. The weekend arrived heavy with possibility. I threw myself into domestic tasks, reorganizing closets and deadheading the last autumn flowers, but my mind kept circling back to Alex's words. The sincerity in his voice, that moment when our hands had touched that Saturday evening, found me curled in my reading chair, a neglected novel in my lap when my phone chimed. Would it be okay if I stopped by? Just to talk without the pretense of driving anywhere. I stared at the message, heart hammering. This felt like standing at the edge of something vast and uncertain. But the alternative, spending another evening wondering what might have been felt. Worse. Yes. But just for a little while. 20 minutes later, his headlights swept across my driveway. I opened the door before he could knock, "Hello," he said, suddenly shy. "Come in from the cold." My living room felt different with him, and it's smaller, but somehow more alive. I made tea while he settled on the couch, maintaining a respectful distance, but creating an undeniable intimacy with his presence. "I didn't come here with expectations," he began. "I just wanted to talk without the car, without time limits." I curled into my chair, wrapping my hands around my mug. "I don't even know what to think, Alex. I spent so long believing that part of life was finished. Romance, being desired. I thought I'd close that door permanently." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "What if it doesn't have to be closed? You have this quiet radiance, Margaret. Maybe no one's told you that before." The admission came before I could stop it. No one ever did. Not really. Even Richard and I were more like companions than lovers. After he died, I convinced myself that was enough, that I didn't need to be seen that way anymore. "But you do?" he asked gently. The tears surprised me. Not sobs, just quiet acknowledgement of a truth I'd buried. Alex didn't move to comfort me, didn't intrude on the moment, just sat with my emotion like it was something precious. After a while, I stood and walked to the window, watching rain streak the glass. My voice barely rose above a whisper. "Part of me wants to thank you for waking something in me, and then go back to my safe, quiet life. And the other part?" he asked from across the room. I turned to face him. "The other part wants to know what it feels like to be truly wanted, to be understood, even if it's terrifying." Alex stood slowly, carefully, but didn't approach. "Then let's start there. With honesty. No games, no unrealistic expectations. Just two people learning to feel again." The room grew impossibly still. I took one step toward him, then another, until we stood close enough to share breath. "I don't know where this leads," I whispered. "You don't have to know," he murmured back. "You just have to be open to the possibility." In that moment, rain drumming against the windows, firelight dancing on the walls, our shadows merging on the floor, I made a choice. Not for passion or grand romance, but for connection. For the fragile hope that maybe love, in all its unexpected forms, could still find me. He didn't touch me, didn't rush the moment. He simply stood there with me in the quiet. And somehow that was exactly enough. The days that followed felt like gentle awakening. Nothing dramatic or earth-shattering, but a slow unfurling of possibilities I'd forgotten existed. Alex didn't overwhelm me with attention or grand gestures. Instead, he offered small consistencies: a good morning text, a shared article he thought I'd enjoy, brief evening calls that felt like gifts rather than obligations. I found myself anticipating these small connections, not with desperate hunger, but with quiet gratitude. He listened without trying to solve my problems, saw beyond the surface I'd perfected over decades. One Thursday, after a particularly draining day managing a crisis at the office, I found him waiting in the parking lot. Again, his presence had become a comfort I was beginning to rely on, though I tried not to examine that dependency too closely. "Rough day?" he asked as I approached his car. "The kind that makes retirement look appealing," I admitted, letting him open. My door. The drive began in comfortable silence. But when he pulled into my driveway, he didn't immediately get out. "Can I ask you something?" he said, turning to face me in the gathering dusk. I nodded. "What scares you most about this, whatever?" "This is between us." I considered the question seriously, watching shadows play across his features. That I'll lose myself. That I'll start wanting things I've convinced myself I'm too old to have. Alex reached over slowly, taking my hand in his. His palm was warm, steady, anchoring. "You won't lose yourself," he said quietly. "And there's no age limit on wanting to. Be loved, Margaret. You've spent your whole life taking care of everyone else. Maybe it's time to let someone take care of you. I looked down at our joined hands. His fingers wrapped around mine with such tenderness it made my throat tight. I don't know what this is, I whispered, but I don't want to run from it anymore. His smile was pure joy, patient and grateful. Then don't. We'll figure it out together. That evening, he came inside not with presumption but with presence. We sat at my kitchen table over tea, sharing stories I'd never told anyone, childhood dreams, the loneliness of my marriage that I never acknowledged, his grief over losing his mother as a teenager. Hours passed unnoticed. When he finally stood to leave, lingering by the door, I made another choice. Would you like to stay? I asked, touching his arm lightly. Not for ... just for company. He understood immediately, the way he seemed to understand everything about me without explanation. Settled on the couch together, a soft throw covering us both, my head found its way to his shoulder. His arm wrapped gently around me. There were no desperate declarations or overwhelming passion, just presence, warmth, the quiet rhythm of two people learning to trust again. As the fire dimmed to glowing embers and the night deepened around us, I finally allowed myself to believe something I'd thought was impossible. That love, in all its strange and unexpected forms, doesn't recognize calendars or social conventions. It simply finds you when you need it most, especially when you've given up looking. This wasn't about age or appropriateness or other people's expectations. This was about connection, about being seen and valued and held not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. And as I drifted towards sleep in the circle of Alex's arms, I realized that maybe the most beautiful love stories begin not with passion, but with recognition, the profound gift of being truly seen by another human being who chooses, despite everything, to stay.